Hey guys, it's Erica Saccoccio here with the Child Care Director's Chair podcast, and we are so excited. We have an insightful episode for you today where we're going to explore the critical role that sensory activities play on supporting brain development for infants and toddlers. We're joined by two expert guests, Lena and Sanja. Sanja, can you say your name for me? Did I say it right? I did.
Sanjana. Sanjana.
We dive into their specialized knowledge on early childhood growth. They both share their expertise, but Lena shares her expertise on prenatal planning, parent and infant bonding, movement milestones like crawling and walking, potty training and supporting children with special needs, while her sister Sanja brings her extensive experience in guiding families through toddlerhood, preschool, and kindergarten years with a focus on mental health, play therapy, and early childhood development. Together, we're going to discuss how sensory activities are not only fun for children, but are essential for their cognitive and physical and emotional development. So, tune in how simple everyday activities can nurture your child's brain development, spirit, and helping them thrive through those formative years. So, welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you for having us. We're happy to be
So
here.
these two beautiful ladies are sisters, and we met at the Flacy conference. Gosh, it feels like a long time ago, but I guess it was October. And they were right across the booth from myself and my sister. So we got along famously that whole weekend. They are so smart, very brilliant. I'm so happy to have them on the show. So welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you for having us. We're so happy to be here with you. And we love the work you do.
Oh, thank you. So tell folks a little bit about like how you ended up on this journey that you're on right now with development for infants and toddlers.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I was studying to be a physical therapist long time ago, and I ended up being in pediatrics. So what I would say when I first started my journey, I didn't know I was going to focus on pediatrics. But once I started working, that was where my passion was. So in pediatric physical therapy, you do focus on infants, toddlers, and really until 21. But I ended up specializing in that early childhood development, like NICU follow-up babies and things like that. And then specializing further in pediatric pelvic health, which is the things like potty training and things along those lines.
So we started off with our individual professional journeys. I'm more into mental health. I was a former school counselor. I've had experience in the early childhood classroom years ago. And so we both have this passion for early childhood for children. But then when she became a mom, it was the first time we experienced, like, I became an auntie, she became a mom, first time mom. And so it was even me supporting her. And then we would talk about a lot about child development and like, oh, what can we do? To nurture for my niece. So that's actually how we decided, like, oh, we can help other people too, because like she has the physical development knowledge, and then I have, the social emotional, the mental health aspect. So we put those together, and we try to create a very holistic experience for children and families.
Yeah.
And I would say that was always our dream. Like we always wanted to work together to create something, and like you said, holistic. Like we want to take care of that whole child.
Yeah, so important. And we know now after COVID, children they're craving it. And one of the things as I talk to childcare directors and teachers, children are posing very challenging behaviors that look extremely different. And we know some of that is lack of social interaction during the pandemic. There's a variety of reasons why children were struggling. So, let's get into a little bit. So, why is sensory play so critical for early brain development, and how does it impact a child's learning and growth?
Yeah, so first we want to talk a little bit about that early childhood development, right? As a baby and the amount of information they're taking in. They're like a little sponge. And by the time they're 2 years old, if you look at their neurons, it looks very similar to what you would see in an adult. After that, they start doing a process called pruning, where they take out information they don't need. Think about like all the information you might have learned in high school that maybe you don't need anymore. You got rid of that, right? So that's what they do.
Algebra. Bye,
Yeah.
algebra.
Bye-bye. Yeah. So just thinking those years, it's not just the baby. You have a little sponge that's soaking in everything. When we talk about sensory, there are 5 outside senses, right? We've got our sight, we've got taste, we've got touch. I think that a lot of, like, when you see on social media people talk about sensory, they're doing a lot of the ones about touch, right? So like a lot of tactile, like let me play this, play that. But we do have to remember there are the auditory, there's the visual, and the taste, and things like that. So that is really important, because here we learn to take information that's outside. Our body processes that information, sends it to the brain, and it interprets it, tells us what to do. That starts very early on. It starts with that, like when the baby's born, the connection with the mother. Even prenatally, we're seeing some research.
That it starts from prenatal. That connection of the parent-child connection starts, and whatever happens in, the prenatal years, it's before, all of that is just as important as when the child is born and what happens in the first 3 years. It all comes together, and
Yeah.
and all of these years are very important. So the early experiences for a child and the early relationships, those together build the architecture of the brain. And so that later on will look like, how does a child respond during stressful times? How does a child access, learning? How do they learn? And all of the other, the softer skills that we know that are needed later on in life to be successful. All of that is developed and setting the stage for now when the child is in learning in preschool. Sometimes babies are in preschool too, and that's just as important as the 3-year-old stage. The baby stage is just as important. So it's just, like infant mental health perspective that we both share is like it starts from prenatal, and the baby years are just as important as the next few years after that. So the first 5 years, there's so much rapid development, and everything that teachers, educators, parents do with their child or with the child in front of them is going to help to build that architecture in the brain for later success.
Yeah. How do you recommend? Because the folks listening to the podcast are typically childcare administrators. How do you recommend, or what resources do you recommend that they share with families so that families understand that? Because I do think most educators understand the importance of what happens early on, but I don't know that all families do. So, what's your advice for administrators on how they can best share this information with families?
That's a great question. I think it really depends on the families that they are serving, because some families may prefer reading, some reading a newsletter maybe electronically. Some families may like a training or some kind of in-person event. Some families may say, okay, we're ready to learn online. So I always feel like every setting is different, every family is different, and the population that different childcare directors and centers will work with, the first thing I think about is doing a needs assessment. Like, ask them what is the best way they would like to learn, because then I feel like then you can meet them somewhere in the middle and provide maybe a variety of ways for them to get that information. I know that a lot of schools, they do the newsletters that they have at the front, and parents can take that and read. But also maybe they do some in-person things as well. Like they'll get some food for parents and say, come on in, let's do a training. Or we've seen some do online trainings as well. Something short, maybe while the kids are in bed and the parents have a few minutes in the evening, something
Yeah.
online. Yeah. And then also be approachable. Like I know a lot of the early childhood directors, they have their heart is in it. So very approachable, so that when parents have a concern, they can go to them.
Yeah.
I look at it from a school counseling perspective. Like you have a school counselor at the school, and then in early childhood is so important. And I'm like, we need somebody there, like that needs to
Yeah.
be there. So I kind of think like having that approach so that they can share the concern, and depending on the concerns too, then educating, a lot of education and psychoeducation for parents. which will then bridge the gap so that the parents can do what they can do at home. And then when the children come to school, they're ready to learn. So it's kind of working hand in hand with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
You gave a lot of great suggestions. And I think too, to use multiple ways that you reach out to the families, as you mentioned, because some families
Yeah.
want to read a whole blog, others really want to be more interactive and go to a
Yes.
workshop or learn on their own through, like you said, maybe a mini workshop or watching a video. So there are so many ways, but it's really important that we're intentional about making sure that we're sharing this information with families, and of course our entry level staff as well. So,
Yeah.
what are some key sensory activities that teachers can incorporate into their classroom routines to stimulate cognitive and emotional development in infants and toddlers?
Yeah.
So first, we can talk about there are two pieces to that. One is the cognitive, one is that emotional piece. So if we're thinking about cognitive piece, we want to start just because a child's not talking to us, we don't want to stop talking, right? So we're going to say, "Oh, I'm getting the book from the bookshelf, and oh, look at this book. The color is blue," and so you just keep talking. That helps them sensory. They're listening. They're using their sense of hearing, and then they're taking in that information and learning. And before you know it, they'll be able to repeat it back.
Mm-hmm.
Sensory, you could even do things like they're washing their hands. I'm washing my hands. Oh, my hands are wet. And now I'm drying my hands. My hands are dry. And helping them identify those things and make those connections in their brain. So those are just really simple things. You can think about what activity am I doing? Sitting down for circle time. Oh, I was standing up and now I'm going down. And then showing them what does that feel like to be up and feel like to be down. So, I mean, I think it's very easy to incorporate into what they're already doing. So it's not another added thing of, okay, now I have to do
Mm-hmm.
this particular sensory activity along with everything else I need to do. So that's for
Yeah.
cognitive, yeah, for
It,
emotional.
go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
Oh yeah,
Finish. Emotional.
for for emotional, I think the first thing I tell parents, teachers, any type of caregiver is that we need to, if we understand more about the child's emotional development, then we can really help them bridge that gap, right? So between 2 and 3 years old, their emotional centers will pretty much fully develop. But the part that helps them control their emotions, that does not develop until much later. Research is finding even mid to late 20s. So we've got a long time of us helping them bridge that gap and helping them figure out, like, oh, first of all, what am I feeling? Often when they feel those strong emotions, they don't even know what they're feeling. But how a teacher can help support in those moments is, one, make sure the child's safe, like not going to hit their head on anything. But the hard part is this, that they need to feel their emotions. That in order to develop, they need to feel it. So they will need to cry or whatever it is they're
Mm-hmm.
doing. We just want to keep them safe while they're doing it. And then after, we can talk
Yeah.
them through. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Um, How can sensory activities be tailored to meet the developmental milestones of different ages? So we'll toss this question to your sister. Maybe different ages
Mhm.
between infants, toddler, preschool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Definitely looking at like what Lena just said, it's about where is the child at. So developmentally, we know infants are, whether they're crawling, whether they're standing, whether they're walking, or some are running. I mean, all these different development milestones. Then depending on where the students are, it's seeing what activities can work for them. So those who are like we want them to learn to stand, it's bringing a toy a little higher so that they want to reach for that toy. Those who are standing and now we want them to start walking, it's giving two things like two pointers and saying, okay, walk from here to here, walk from here to here. So it's about motivating them. Main thing is looking at the development of the child. Where is the child at? And then that way it would be looking at what maybe having a few different activities based on the different developments. Okay, some classrooms have very specific ages in them. Like I think it's like 6 months. Like they have a 6 month how do you say, like a cohort, if I say,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes they have a 6 month cohort, so then the students are along the same, kind of along a similar development, but sometimes childcare centers have multiple, a wider range in one
Mm-hmm.
classroom. So then, of course, the differentiation is going to look very interesting, and that teachers, I mean, all teachers are rock stars. So I know that this is their expertise in differentiating, but basically, again, looking at where the child is at in development, and then trying to, like Lena said, something that they're doing already, just highlighting it a little more for each child, depending on their needs and where they are.
And if you're
Yeah.
working on that sense of touch, like I'm gonna touch this item, and you've got an infant or a very young toddler, know that developmentally they're gonna put stuff in their mouth. So when we
Everything.
choose those, and it's very normal. We want them. This is a movement we want them to be able to do because later on they're going to feed themselves that way. So it's very normal. So just think about the activity that you're doing and if that would be appropriate for that age group.
Yeah. How can teachers and directors use sensory activities to support children with special needs or developmental delays in a group setting?
So one thing Sanjana talked about is meeting the child where they're at. First, to know where they're at. So, for example, do I have an aversion to this kind of thing? And then, if they do have an aversion, or do they have a response like I'm going to run away from this activity, or is the response like I just simply don't want to touch it, but I'll look at it. So I'll use my sense of vision to look at it, but maybe I'm not going to touch it today, or maybe I'll
Mhm.
just put my hand a little bit closer. So think of it in those steps. If it's something that they do run away from, maybe you want to put it a little bit further from them and see if they'll even just sit with it there. So like if it's a something Play-Doh or kinetic sand or something, see if they will at least watch it and then inch in from there.
Mm. That's
So that's
good.
one
Yeah.
strategy, but everybody is very different. So if you think about some people when they experience like even going to the grocery store, it's a stressful event for them, and that's why they may
Yeah.
be yelling and why they may be trying to run away and things like that. So I think
Mm.
even just thinking about what that feels like for them and then taking it easy and slowly easing in.
Yeah.
And getting to know the child and observing the
Mhm.
children over time.
Yeah. What ways can teachers create a sensory rich environment in their classrooms that fosters safe exploration and developmental growth?
Yeah. When we hear sensory rich, we think incorporating it within the classroom, but in a very balanced way, because, like Lena just said, we don't want to overstimulate children, but then we also want to have opportunities, like you said, for them to have a safe space to explore. So, if they have a little corner, maybe they can put some things in the corner, like sometimes there's a calming corner or a movement corner, like a student needs a little break. The student, one of our active students just a little
Hmm.
break over there. Having a corner if possible. If not, trying to sprinkle something maybe in the classroom, depending on the age level. Like it just depends. And some people might not like the mirrors when babies are there, but maybe for toddlers, putting
Hmm.
mirrors at putting things at their eye level. That is like that's the best way that I've seen where the students can engage in it on their own. So then it's less directed by the teacher, but it's already incorporated into the classroom. So, using the wall space, using corners, and then also an activity. So if the teacher has something planned, putting it in the planning period of an activity based sensory based, maybe a 5 minute dance if students like that, dance and music, shake it out.
Yeah, I love dance.
Yes, yes.
um, so, how important is it for teachers to understand each child's individual sensory needs? You touched on this a little bit. What strategies can they use to observe and adapt activities accordingly?
Yeah. So yeah, everybody and I'm gonna relate it to us because I think when we can understand things in our own sense or in our own bodies, it helps us understand more about the kids. So, for example, if I'm feeling pain, it feels very different for me versus you and versus Erica. So we all feel pain differently. I might need to take some medicine, or I might need to take some water, or, I might be screaming, but everybody has that different experience. So presenting whatever it is first and observing a reaction, that's one of the best ways to start. And seeing, we touched a little bit about it earlier, like, what is my reaction to seeing this bowl of kinetic sand? Is it that I'm interested, or I'm really not interested? And if they have some type of thing where they could take notes on the children, we're looking at how many children in the classroom, maybe 18, or depending on
Well,
the
it
size of
depends
the
on the age.
school.
Yeah, if it's an infant or
Yeah,
toddler, it would be 8,
yeah.
maybe 12 tops.
Yeah. It would be a little bit easier to keep track of those things in the smaller classrooms, but in the bigger classrooms, we typically do have more teachers, and
Mm-hmm.
then we can maybe split up the class, like, okay, let me take some notes on this one and that one. And often they're so good that they just remember from their memory, oh yeah, they didn't like this activity or
Yeah.
didn't like that. Yeah, yeah, they're so good. I'm always impressed.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. They're gonna
So
have to
we
try
had
it out
talked.
and
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
So yeah, we had talked earlier about, parents a little bit. So let's go back to that for a second.
Mhm.
So what can teachers or administrators do to really foster strong parent and teacher partnerships and supporting brain development through sensory activities at home and in the classroom? Maybe making that school to home connection.
Yeah. Um, I take this as a school counselor. Is
Mhm.
It's always nice to get to know the parents before anything happens, because then I know that I have this relationship to fall back on. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we've talked. We've talked a bit more. We've gotten to know each other in a sense that we're here for the child, and so there's that that relationship, so that when something does happen, the the parent is more open to listening and also builds trust. So building rapport with the parents,
Mm-hmm.
trying to do it on a hi, hello, how are you? And sometimes parents, I remember when I was in the classroom, they would say, "Oh, my child says your name a lot at home." So like when they see the teacher, and then they see like the teacher cares, or the administrator, the childcare director cares, and they feel invited. They feel a warm welcome every time they walk into that reception area, and they're walking through. They pick up their children or child. It's having that consistent warm, just that warm feeling, and for teachers checking in with the parent, hey, how are you, whenever they can, and building that rapport and building the trust, so that now when I have to have a difficult conversation, I'm not sure how the parent will react, but I've built a relationship where
Mhm.
I can bring this to them now, and we can talk about it, and I can see where it goes. Do we need to get an outside resource? Is this something where I can tell the parent to read this blog? And then that way, just going from there. So definitely, parents want to know that we care about their kids. That's what they want to know. Like they want to know that the people care genuinely, and that
Yeah.
that they're there for their kids, because they're entrusting the school with their kids for 8 hours, sometimes a day.
Yeah.
So they just want to know that there's that safe, warm environment, and that there is that genuine care.
Yeah.
And in a non-judgmental way as well, because like, even if parents put something on social media, there's often a lot of negativity, but keeping
Mm-hmm.
that very positive and non-judgmental will help the parent also feel more comfortable. And if
Yeah.
they are experiencing something difficult at home, maybe they would feel comfortable enough to share with the teacher or the administrator, which will help them understand, oh, this is why this child is responding like that. This is their stress response, or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, as we start to wrap up, how can teachers guide and support children in reaching those key milestones that you had mentioned, earlier that you're really great at, like crawling and standing and walking through sensory-driven activities? So, what type of sensory-driven activities can teachers use to help kids move through those milestones?
So we're going to start at the baby. So when you have that baby,
Hmm.
what you're going to do is you're going to have a nice mat that's firm too, and you'll place them on their tummy on the mat. Okay, sensory, because they're going to put their forearms down on the mat. They may, if they're tired, they may lay their head down on the mat. And what that does is it gives deep pressure to the bones, gives deep pressure to the jaw if they're laying on it. And that helps to build those bones. And it helps the child, when the child learns to push up like that, get strength in their back, which will eventually help them sit. So for babies, that's where I start. So you've got to do that sense of touch, the tummy time. And then you want to stimulate them with other things. You can bring a toy that makes a noise, like some type of rattle and makes a noise. And maybe they're on their tummy, and then you can have them turn, or you can have them, look one way, look the other way, look up, and stimulate them like that. You can use lights for visual. You can use, and very early on, you use black and white, like high contrast for visual. And then for toddlers?
Yeah, for toddlers, I mean, they love to move. So keeping them moving, again, the dancing, the music, they just to get the movement, because now they're walking, they're running. So definitely helping them to get some movement out, using all the senses. So again, like if you go outside and you're playing in the playground, then if there's a flower, like, oh, let's smell this flower. Is there a smell? Just introducing them to the everyday things, because that's how they're going to learn through the early experiences, and then through, of course, the teacher child relationship as well. Because we know when we feel a bond with our teacher, we learn better, because now we have that interest and that motivation to learn. So always remembering that, it's the simplest things, what they're already doing, but highlighting it a bit more. So movement, um, smelling a flower, listening to music. I mean, there's just things that teachers are doing, and it's more just highlighting it for the child, that they're like, oh, we're moving our bodies. Oh, we're doing this, giving them that.
Yeah. So let's talk about some tools. So you ladies have developed a kit. Talk a little bit about the kit that you offer for childcare centers and families.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the first kit we've created, this is for around ages 3 to 6. If you have a very mature 2-year-old, they could do that. And we're looking at the different parts of the child, right? Like we talk about having that holistic view. So there's information for helping facilitate emotional development, and then motor development. And then especially in those ages, we're looking at some of the things that they may experience, like they'll need to work on some mindfulness activities. So we have things like that in there. We have specific tools, and we have handouts that tell the facilitators, parents, educators how to use those activities and why they're important. The other part is knowing why something is important and and that would encourage us to use it as well. Yeah. And then we
Yes.
have our latest one coming out in April, actually. Yeah, and this one is going to be geared towards the babies. So we're looking at the infants. That's coming out soon.
Yeah. So what's included in the kit? Can you talk a little bit about like what they get in the kit?
Yeah. So we have a workbook, so it explains how to use each of the items that are in the kit, because each item has a purpose, and we want to ensure that everyone is using it in the way that would be most effective for children. So the whole point of our kit is to promote healthy development through connections. So whether it's through a teacher, through a therapist, through parent, there's going to be workbook, so it's pretty detailed of how to use the items, and also the items are in there. So a lot of people who've used them, they like that it's portable. They like that everything is already there, so they're just going to grab and go. We've had feedback where it's been used for students who are either going to kindergarten or who are already in kindergarten, and they're very stressed already, unfortunately. It's just a lot earlier, a lot of things just happening a lot earlier. And so that's what we make our kit as holistic as possible, so that teachers who are already busy, parents who are already busy, therapists, everybody, they can grab and say, okay, let's work on this today. And they can do it in a group style, where everybody's working on it at the same time in an educational setting, or they could even do one-on-one. So if a child needs some movement, there's some movement ideas in there to strengthen the body. And then if a child needs a mindful moment, there's something in there. And then if a child needs some help with social emotional, because they need a lot of help in that age period because of the brain development, we want to help them in the best way possible. So
And
that
they're
the
all
architecture of the brain, it can shape it the way that would be best for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're all kid-friendly items in there, like little plush toys. There's some crayons, a marker. There's stuff for the breathing, like pinwheel, and then we tell you how to use animals and things like that to make it really fun and engaging for the child. So we also work with children, so we know that if you tell them to do a squat, they're not going to do a squat. But if I give them a fun way to do it, then it'll work out a little better.
Yeah. So for folks who are interested in learning more about you ladies, the work you do, or want to grab one of those awesome kits that you have, tell folks where they can find you.
Yeah, we have our website, www.connecttokid.com, and the 2 is actually a 2, a numerical number. And then you can also email us or send us a message through the website as well with any questions.
Yep. And you can find them on social media. They're also on Instagram. You can find them there too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you can find them in all those places, and we'll leave a link in the show notes for you as well. If you enjoyed today's episode and you want to continue hearing valuable insight from experts all over the globe, consider supporting the show with the $5 a month donation. Your support helps us continue to bring on incredible guests and continue sharing important knowledge about early childhood education and the amazing things that are going on in our community. Every contribution goes a long way in helping us keep this conversation going. So thank you. And as always, remember, it's the small details that make a big impact on the success of your childcare business. That's all for today. Bye.